into a Swiss tournament, you start to tend to see matchups be a lot more even in nature.
Agreed. Weeks 3 and 4 when you start getting a lot more even matchups, so these races come a lot closer. So let's go ahead and see it as everyone kicks off and see what we get today.
Starting out with a piece of heart in Link's house, so no bombs as of yet for Biohazard. I'm sure to his relief.
That is correct, but let's see what Uncle has to say about that once we drop down the hole here in a second.
Question. It is not a sword. We know that for a fact at this point, but could be any other offensive weapon here, and we'll find out what that is here in the next few seconds. Told ya.
And you were correct. The curse has come true with the bombs being asked for, and they show up anyway.
Apologies, Biohazard, but you got this, man.
At least we know they have a bomb to get in the back of Escape now. Alright, everything's looking pretty solid and neck here as we enter in the first part of going down to get the princess to escape the castle.
Yep, we'll see how both of these runners manage their bomb tossing abilities here while they're in lockstep with each other. About to do that here. Just some little background on how these runners got to their current records. JamesFnX defeated Belmont in week 1, however lost to M. Kostler and lost to Vtorp in the following weeks. Meanwhile, Biohazard losing the first 2 weeks to Time Wanderer and Ginger Damas respectively, but taking the first victory off Westside Vandal last week.
That is a good piece of information to know, and let's see how they react coming up here to the next guard that they have to kill to get that important key to progress.
Yep, it looks like despite Biohazard's wishes, so far is getting the better right now in the bombing, but here we go to the next guard here. And utilizing some kamikaze methods there to get rid of that green guard.
Yeah, he's doing fairly well at it. Ooh, getting attacked by the guard now there. Let's see what's in that box.
Just the requisite small key of this sequence. Biohazard currently at 4 bombs. James picking up a bomb drop from that green guard, and that upped his count to 6. So a very minor advantage right now in the bombs. As far as the bombs are concerned, whether that plays a factor or not, we will soon see. But here we have Biohazard entering the cells part of the escape and see if he can. He needs to be very careful. Oh, that's a very ill-timed death.
That is very unfortunate to get a guard poking you in the back like that.
Salt in the Wound was just pixels away from picking up a heart to avoid that, but unfortunately that will put JamesFnX into a bit of a lead here from the get-go. We'll see if Biohazard can make up for lost time here.
Well, as you've seen in previous matches, this lead will probably be temporary and he'll make it up somewhere.
Absolutely. Definitely that'll play in the mind games aspect as well. I speak from experience, having died in Escape and not even having bombs as an excuse for the death. Dying early just weighs on your mind. It takes all of your all that you have to try and push it out and press on forward and not let it impact you for the remainder of your seed.
Completely agreed. Though he did get a refresh on the bombs, so now he made up for a little bit of that by getting all his bombs back.
So Biohazard now at round 2 of this, and with the benefit of full health, should have no problem in dispatching the jailer here with 2 well-thrown pots. In the meantime, JamesFnX is now on his way into the sewers, and we'll see what contents lay within. So far, just a lot of red rupees to be had in this sequence thus far. It looks like Bio is taking no chances of getting another untimely poke. Going to take the southern way up and over to get out of the basement of the sewers here. And meanwhile, James is trying to get this rat over and done with here, having a little trouble as that rat can be very evasive. Takes him down with 3 bombs to spare, so we have plenty of bombs here to utilize right here to get these 3 items in the left room here to avoid having to double dip here. Meanwhile, Biohazard about a minute and a half behind, I would estimate, judging by when James was making this similar journey across this room. Just a piece of heart and yet more money for James there out of the sewer secret room there. So definitely going to be more interested in some higher value items here as they approach Kakariko and beyond, for sure. James picking up a piece of heart out of the sanctuary. Meanwhile, Biohazard getting yet another red rupee there out of the sewer's chest, and James is on his way northward. Looks like a standard tree pull and or lumberjack ledge check coming right up here. And just a lot of health to be had from the pull and the loot spider. We'll see what the lumberjack ledge has here for James. Just a piece of heart.
Looks like the seed's going to be generous with health after he goes ahead and gives them the bombs to start out tonight.
And speaking of bombs, have 3 more out of the vanilla mushroom spot.
Well, it wasn't the bomb upgrade, but it's an arrow upgrade for you instead.
And as Biohazard makes his way out of the sewers at just a little over 8 minutes and 40 seconds, we have JamesFnX now entering Kakariko at about that same time. See if Blind's hideout and the well have a little bit more interesting things to light up here in their respective inventories.
Getting a big 20, little heart, another little heart, the shovel, and let's see what's in the back of Blind's hut here, and another 20.
Wow, when the shovel is the most exciting item to collect 10 minutes in, this seed has been rather, it's like blood out of a stone so far.
Completely agreed on that. So hopefully we get some more interesting information here out of the well, and let's see what we get.
Well, we can thread in a sick kid check on the way out of Kakariko at least. And hey, there's finally something of note. We've got a moon pearl right there in the back of the well. And a hammer. Here we go. This is what I'm talking about. Another piece of hearts and some more bombs to round it out.
All right, now we're making some progression there. Let's see what Sick Kid has for us in the back of the bar, and along with the bottle vendor, and a little bit of love from the bottle vendor.
Get more health coming out of the chicken coop there for James, and we'll see what the tavern and the bottle and the sick kid rather now have.
Just a little bit more of love. The seed is full of love so far.
And that's now 10 additional arrows that James can now carry. That may be relevant at some point, but it sure as heck isn't right now. So James will now be checking the library and the race game, while Biohazard is now getting the line's hideout items cleared out. And we have a second bottle with magic potion at the top of the shelf that quite likely will be sticking there for the remainder of this race.
That is a very good possibility. It just depends on how everything shapes up later on.
Absolutely. Just a piece of heart for the race reward, and it looks like James is going to forego the save and quit and opt to go ahead and dig out the shovel position. I certainly don't blame them, given the hammer's nice, but the hammer and moon pearl are very nice, but now you got the shovel. You want to go ahead and get this out of the way while you're in the neighborhood, and these guards are providing a little bit of a roadblock for James in the meanwhile.
Let's see what we and a small shield, and James does go ahead and pick it up.
So Biohazard getting his hammer and moon pearl out of the well, and we'll round out the remainder of his Kakariko visit. In the meanwhile, James is going to be heading toward the South Shore, check the dam locations, and presumably the mini Moldorm cave afterwards.
The big question, though, is do you think James will continue the check on the way up to Ice Rod Cave, or do you think he'll skip it for now?
It's very possible. It may depend on how much health he comes out of the mini Moldorm cave with no sword and just the hammer, and maybe some yet even more bombs than he had previously. Maybe that may make the call for him. I'm not sure, but it's very you want to. It's probably best to go ahead and check it while you're in the neighborhood, but it's understandable if you want to leave it for potentially a later time when you may be able to access it with better speed. But we'll see here shortly, either way.
That is very true. Let's see what the dam uncovered, and another bottle with some red goo in there to give us more life. So that green bottle is looking a lot less likely now.
Yep, that's the third known bottle, only the second one that has been collected by James thus far. And James will make his way toward Mini Moldorm Cave here, and let's see how quickly he can dispatch with just a hammer and maybe some explosives here. Nice double there on that second throw.
He did a phenomenal job with that. Let's go ahead and check out here with a big piece of love. The single arrow, can't get in without it. Not really, but hey, 300, a little bit more love, and a big 20.
And meanwhile, on the other side of our view, we had Biohazard doing a Light World dungeon check. We had a regular crystal at Eastern, a red crystal at the Tower of Hera, and the green pendant at Desert Palace. So all three dungeons, they're having some particular trait about them that is worth keeping in mind.
Very true. That means all three of our pendants are in the Dark World. That makes it a possibility that maybe Turtle Rock, Misery Mire, and Ice Palace aren't needed. We'll see, though.
It does look like James is going to go ahead and make his way into the Ice Rod Cave here. Be interesting to see if he elects to fake Flipper afterward with that Moon Pearl already collected, but we'll see what's here in the Ice Rod Cave. It is a vanilla Ice Rod Cave. What would you know?
By Scott Batman, I would have never guessed that it would be there.
And it looks like James has not saved and quit, so it looks like he may be going down here to try and get a fake Flipper, and took a bit of a tap from one of those crabs there for a good 2 hearts worth of damage. But looks like that's all that it's going to be taking here, so he should be able to set this up here. And a very well done setup there without the benefit of a sword. Very nicely done. Looks like Biohazard doing a little bit of a deviation here, going to Agina's Cave at this point. Maybe resorting to gambles, thinking that he is significantly behind from that early death. Gets a fair bit of money for his trek, but that will be all for Biohazard as he goes ahead and saves and quits. And James takes a very ill-advised hit while in the fake Flipper state, and that is an insta-kill.
Don't foresee him going and trying that again, so he's probably going to head over to Eastern Palace now to see what's up over there.
Absolutely. So in the early stages here, both of our runners having deaths that they would definitely are regretting, and we'll see how both of them persevere. We get James doing his Light World dungeon check and revealing what Biohazard already knows.
I correct my previous statement about how all three were pendants or crystals, because I just now corrected myself when seeing that's a green pendant over there.
Yep, it's still a good likelihood that TR and or Meyer may be pendants. 2 of the 7 are going to be pendants. There we have the Magic Cape and just the Magic Cape to go along with the 55 rupees there in the back of Sahasrahala's hut. And it looks like James may be segueing into Eastern Palace right afterwards.
With that cape showing up, I have a feeling we might be seeing a trip to Aga's Tower in Hyrule.
It's certainly one of the elements that goes along with an Agaseed, to be sure. We're still swordless here as well, so let's see what the seed beholds for our runners here. But yeah, that Magic Cape is definitely brings up an Aga watch for sure. As James enters Eastern Palace, we have Biohazard also getting a nice 2-for-1 on that bomb on the left side of the mini Moldorm Cave, and he's electing to go ahead and pound down the final one, preserving a bomb, presumably.
James picking up a nice safety with the half magic there. Always good to have this early in the game, especially with that ice rod.
Yep. Serves as a nice magic refill and halves your magic usage for the remainder of your game. So that's a very nice pickup to get in the early phases for James. And that is the first of 3 items here in Eastern. We're logically locked out of 2 positions here from the lack of a lamp and bow, and there's a power glove. That's item number 2. That may not be a matter. We may be getting all 3 items here right at the get-go, but it looks like James is going to go ahead and save and quit from here.
I have a feeling he's going to go for Dark World access and check Hype Cave with that. Oh no, he's going over to there. Let's see where he heads off to.
Sanctuary Warp may foreshadow a Death Mountain visit, possibly? I'm not sure. Well, it looks like he's going to go to the Village of Outcasts. Going to take the long way around, but go ahead and go there first.
We see Biohazard completely opt out of trying to do a fake flipper, so looks like he's going to do his Eastern run now. Now that we're going to our first check in Dark World, let's see what Thieves Town has to offer us.
Looks like our pendants are Swamp and Pod, respectively. I think Ice was the red crystal, but I didn't catch that.
I want to say you're correct on that one, but I didn't get a very good look at her. As we see Biohazard going ahead and putting good use to that hammer as James picks up the big 20 from the chess game.
Picked up 100 rupees as well, which is a nice addition to his rupee count. He can now afford, well, would be able to afford Zora, but I imagine a digging game may be in short order, which will drop him below that threshold, but all the same, that's a welcome extra 100 rupees to get out of that as well. And also getting an armor upgrade, that is also, I'm sure, welcome by James at this point. Now, over on BioHazard's side, I'm going to be very curious to see if he also immediately opts out once collecting this Power Glove here in the Eastern chest. Meanwhile, Heart Container for James out of the Sea House. And we are going to get a dip into Thieves Town here from James with that hammer and half magic with the magic cape. Despite being swordless, very doable if James were to go ahead and see this all the way through. BioHazard has now collected his Power Glove and so far has remained in Eastern, so he may go ahead and see if he can clear out all 3 items here and just leave the boss remaining.
James, meanwhile, going ahead and picking up the big burrito map to go ahead and keep moving forward. Let's see what else he picks up here in Thieves Town.
Yet another era upgrade for James. That's the first item out of the requisite 4 here in Thieves, and that is all that there's going to be in the first 4 chests here. So there are 3 remaining items to be had in this dungeon in the back half of it.
Got Biohazard here picking up the big key and just the compass out of there. So we still got another item, not sure where it is yet.
It is not in logic, but that does not stop Biohazard from going ahead and going to the vanilla big chest key and seeing if he can go ahead and get that item from there. If it's not there, it's going to be held by the Armos Knights, which unless a bow is to be collected here, that's going to have to come at a later time.
James making his way through the hallway here and getting a little bit beat up, but it looks like he's making good progress.
Yeah, certainly that armor upgrade really helping out James at this point. And although most of those things in that room do only 1 heart. Still, everything else in this dungeon tends to do 2 with green mail. So that blue mail is a very welcome addition to James's arsenal. I did not see what was in the big key chest for Biohazard.
Big key chest was the compass, and so the last thing looks like it's on the Armos Knight, so we'll have to come back later for the last item. James going ahead and showing his displeasure of the grasshopper throwing it into him by putting a bomb. Let's see if Biohazard's going to check out Hive Cave here.
I certainly understand the frustration. However, with just 4 bombs at your disposal, you may want to elect to show some restraint there, but I certainly can't. I can empathize with James's frustration, to be sure. It looks like Biohazard is going to be warping here and checking the Hype Cave. We'll see if it lives up to its name this time.
That is a very good question, if it's going to be Hype Cave or Myth Cave. Starting off with 3 bombs, picking up a big 50, the red meringue, let's got some of that, and mail upgrades. So we know where both mail upgrades are now. Skullwoods, we've got a good run going on here, and it's basically playing a bit of catch up there. Let's see what we can find on their sides. James picks up a little piece of heart and continues on. Meanwhile, Biohazard seems to be peacing out and heading down to Thieves Town now. Biohazard goes ahead and sees that he has the flippers there and goes ahead and gets into the cave so he can pick them up also. And now we'll see what James does now. Biohazard finally getting his flippers there, goes ahead and dodges the flying birds, and decides to use Cave to completely get out of there to peace out and stay in good health. James goes to be looking for a dig game, so let's see what we have down there. On the 21st dig, he goes ahead and pulls the big 50, so he will be heading out, going and checking everything else so he can continue the loop. Meanwhile, Biohazard goes ahead and picks up his red armor, so he has fully outfitted himself and is good to go for the rest of this matchup. Alright, and we see that Biohazard went ahead and got his boots, and James is picking up Pipe Cave right now. So he will be mildly disappointed there without getting too much outside the red moraine. And he picks up his final armor upgrade also and decides not to save and quit. Let's see where he heads out to now. Looks like James is going to go ahead and check the pyramid and see what's left on there.
Okay, it appears Discord has allowed me to return. Sorry for that, everyone. Apologies for the technical difficulties here.
And just a piece of heart there on the pyramid, so James is going to go ahead and peace out on it. And let's see where he heads off to now.
Looks like we have a pod we have a pod check for JamesFnX. I did notice while I was having all sorts of technical issues, that was a very impressive swordless kill on blind for James. So I'm sure that was detailed by my cohort What's Up, but allow me to go ahead and provide the just due for that very impressive swordless kill for JamesFnX as he is entering pod, paying off the monkey for his required fee to access that dungeon. And as I'm trying to gather my bearings here to see what our runners have and have not collected in the meantime, I see that we are still swordless here going into the 37th minute of play here. That is quite rude of this seed to do that to our runners here. Let's see what the first pod item has. It is the mirror for JamesFnX. So while that does bowlock him out of further progression in this dungeon, I'm sure James will take that with a smile. So a very lucrative gamble for JamesFnX, checking the pendant pod and getting the mirror for his efforts. So that we'll see how much that impacts the remainder of this race. See how long it takes Bio to check it. Now, theoretically, the mirror would not necessarily have to be required with Swamp being a pendant, but requirement or not, that is a nice convenience to have to check any other items that may otherwise be inaccessible to you. Meanwhile, Biohazard is going to collect the locations that I did not have the luxury of seeing. Looks like we had 3 bombs in the big key chest of Thieves Town. And meanwhile, James, looks like we're going to see what this catfish has in the seed for our runners. We'll see how well Biohazard fares against blind with his limited inventory. Let's see what the catfish has after throwing the stone into the circle there. And the catfish emerges and provides a hook shot. Very nice grabs from James here in the last few minutes, collecting both the mirror and hook shot out of pod and the catfish respectively, and is going to segue this beautifully into a waterfall and Zora's domain check. And there's our first sword. Finally, 38 minutes in, out of the waterfall chests, James picking up a much desired sword.
I know Biohazard really wished he had that sword right now.
And looks like just a single rupee for the Zora ledge. That will be obviously foregone. And let's see what Zora will offer for a hefty price of 500 rupees here. And some love. Meanwhile, Biohazard very nicely demonstrating a swordless blind kill with the hammer as well. Very well done by both of our runners here, taking the lack of a sword and saying to heck with it and pounding blind into submission for their respective first crystals. So with the Pegasus boots, I did not see where those were collected. I was having technical troubles, so it looks like both of our runners did manage to find the Pegasus boots, and James is using that to check the bonk rocks here and just get 20 rupees out of it. Thanks, guys, for filling me in there, Stumpy with the boots. So, yep, both of our runners collecting that during their Southern Dark World checks after Village of Outcasts, presumably. Looks like James is going to come back to this warp point, it looks like, and maybe going into Skull at this point. I'm not sure. Meanwhile, Bio is using the flippers to check Hobo.
And the fire rod. Nice pickup there from the Hobo.
That Hobo was lit, getting a fire rod out of him, and that's both rods. So that's a nice burden off of your mind with both rods collected, knowing that TR is in the cards for this seed. And it looks like Bio is going to be heading back down here. Looks like he will be checking the Zora locations. He'll be quite pleased by getting a sword out of this. Not much else, if I recall, but that sword is good enough for all the next 4 locations, and for Biohazard, I'm sure.
And we got James over there checking K45. Let's see what he gets out of here. And it's the lamp.
So logically speaking, pod pendant check to get the mirror would be required to logically complete the seed. So that's a nice pickup for James. Not having to do Mire in the dark is always a wonderful thing to know.
Completely agreed. And now that puts the Death Mountain completely in logic. Let's see if James is going to go check it here now that he's got access.
Meanwhile, Biohazard's getting a hard container for his 500 investment, and yet we got James definitely en route to Death Mountain here. With the mirror and hammer, all of Death Mountain is now accessible as well. So that's another side effect, although the hookshot also granted similar access, but all methods of progression through Death Mountain available with those items in tow.
I foresee Biohazard making that pod play now. Since he's heading over in that direction, he'll probably be dipping into the Dark World pretty shortly here.
Getting yet more fire, in this case the Bombos medallion, out of the Old Man. So that's our first medallion discovered in this seed. 1 is guaranteed to be required, very likely to be 2, based with the Mire and TR, Turtle Rock that is, being Crystal Dungeons. We'll see if Bombos happens to be one of the 2 required entries.
Biohazard making that pyramid check. Unfortunately, he's going to be upset seeing it's just a small piece of heart.
And wherever you go in Spectacle Rock, you're going to be met with 20 rupees. There are a good 28 of them spread out here in Yon throughout the randomizer pool. So there's a good 1/14 of them all in that one little spot. So it looks like James is going to take this warp. And looks like, I was thinking maybe a Spike Cave, but it looks like he's going to forego that and jump right up here and maybe go ahead and take care of Tower Hera while he's in the neighborhood.
Well, with him having that fire source, he's got it completely open to him. I don't see why you wouldn't. It's a good play there.
No doubt about it. A big key right there in the first item location, so a basement is not going to be immediately required here. Now, depending on how these items are laid out, it may come back later, but there's 1 of 2 items right there in the form of a blue rupee here in the lobby.
James having a little bit of trouble with them hard hats, but he's making good time still. Let's go ahead and see what Biohazard does now that he's got the mirror. Is he going to stick around, or is he going to use mirror back? And let's see what he does.
It's like took a moment for Biohazard to realize that he was locked out of anything else in pod at this very moment, and maybe a blessing in disguise there with pod just being a pendant. And that's both items here in Tower of Hera in the form of various rupees there for James. So he'll just take care of Moldorm here and be done with this place.
Pretty sure he's relieved right now, knowing he will not have to go check that basement and wait on the tile room to finish up. And so let's see how surely Moldworm will be today.
Moldorm evading these hammer pounds. James nearly taking a fall in the middle pit there, but just avoiding that. Still trying to get the first hammer pound in to Moldorm.
Luckily he didn't, because that's a 2 fall. Oh, he gets trolled right off, but at least he didn't fall 2 floors on that one. Meanwhile, Biohazard's making good use of that cape that he has, so he does. Ooh, there's the 2-4 fall now.
Meanwhile, Biohazard about to collect his hook shot from the catfish, while James is ascending back for a third attempt against Moldorm, hopefully third time being the charm in this case for James. Falling to Moldorm can be a little salt-inducing, but just got to put it behind you and take care of him and move on.
Moldworm going ahead and playing a little bit hard to get there, and James finishes off with the third whack of the hammer. And here we go for crystal number 2.
So if Biohazard can make quicker work of Moldorm, that'd be a significant chunk of time right there in the form of that Moldorm fight. So see if Biohazard can capitalize on that potential time difference there. Meanwhile, James is exiting Tower of Hera and will be proceeding on to the eastern part of Death Mountain. We'll see what the many items therein withhold for James here.
Ooh, and it looks like Biohazard is going to make an early play into Swamp Palace since he can fully clear that. Let's see how it pays off for him.
And just a piece of heart out of Spiral Cave. Still another 7 item locations to check here in the Light World alone. Meanwhile, Biohazard makes his descent into Swamp Palace proper here. It's 6 items to be had in this dungeon by themselves. So we'll see if any of those 6 items are worth Biohazard's investment into this rather time-consuming dungeon.
Since he's doing this quick play, do you think he's going to do left side right now, or do you think he's just going to do the normal, go straight back into it and see what he gets from there?
Well, it's a pendant, so I'm not sure if that makes any impact on the decision. I would imagine if you're going to be this thorough about it, may as well gamble left side, but There's silver arrows for James there in Paradox Cave. That's pretty much the highlight of the Death Mountain collection, though. James going to save and quit with those silver arrows. No means to utilize them as of yet without a bow, but still a very nice pickup all the same.
That is very true, because it will definitely help with the Armos fight and anything else that you use those on. Like if you use them for... wow, I just completely mind blanked.
That's perfectly fine. We have James taking a dive into Lake Hylia here. Looks like he is going to get his fire rod from the hobo here momentarily. Meanwhile, Biohazard getting that key from the fixed location here. Presumably going to go down to the southern room here and get the item location there.
Lamolas is what I was trying to think of earlier when I completely mind blanked. And James going ahead and picking up his fire rod, completely happy that he won't have to be chasing that around the world later.
Absolutely, and yet another heart container out of that southern location here. And it does look like, despite my pre-conjecture previously, Biohazard is making a dive straight for Argus. And James probably thinking Skull Woods here with that fire rod collected. Certainly makes a lot of sense, given that that is a dungeon that is half of it completely blocked without that fire rod. So getting that opens the door for a full complete clearance there. And we got a Master Sword for Biohazard at the 52nd minute of play, getting his level 2 sword.
So it looks like that jump into Swamp is paying off a little bit for him. Let's see if it will continue paying off for him.
Yeah, definitely depending on where the other swords are in the seat. Hey, there's a Flute. Talk about your payoffs.
Yep, this is definitely a required Swamp dive, so it is paying off.
This is a huge find for Biohazard. Who knows when James will decide to give Swamp its proper attention, but I foresee Biohazard having this Flute for a considerable amount of time over James here.
I completely agree with you there, and it will definitely help him catch up a little bit with being able to flute around, not have to walk everywhere, so we shall see how this helps him out.
So with Titan's Mitts, that makes Meyer open as soon as those Titan Mitts get it, whenever they decide to show themselves. Now, I'm not sure, do you know if Skullwoods got checked by James during our, at least my technical issues? Because he went straight for the back here. I don't know if he's planning to check the remaining locations on his way out, or if he's got Skullwoods already cleared.
He's already done the clearing of it earlier. Him and Biohazard were both crisscrossing throughout there. But yes, he's already checked it, so he knows he's good to go straight at the Moth.
And straight to Moth, James will go here. Just has Fire Sword, but with Fire Rod and half magic, even without the potent sword capabilities, that Fire Rod should make up for any lost offensive potential, provided the spikes don't interfere with those plans.
Yeah, and as long as he doesn't get grabbed by that Wallmaster, he'll be good to go and makes it all the way down with no problems. And we see both of our runners in a boss battle, James and Mothula, and Biohazard there and Argus. So let's go ahead and see how it pays out for both of them.
Down goes Mothula for James with some very well-placed Fire Rod shots, and that is Skull Woods cleared for James for his second crystal. Meanwhile, just at about the same time, down goes Argus for Biohazard, getting just the Pendant of Power, not a crystal, but the other items collected on the way to Argus certainly make up for that pendant. And indeed, that is the third crystal, rather, for James. I Forgot to count that other finger on my hand. My apologies, guys.
And I have no doubt here that Biohazard's going to go ahead and activate his flute and start whipping around the world and getting this stuff done, especially going up to Death Mountain, since he hasn't made that venture yet.
Yep, and with the flute activation surely forthcoming here from Biohazard, he'll be able to just flute his way onto Death Mountain. That'll be a very nice convenience, as well as fluting any of the other warp points here for the remainder of this seed. And like I mentioned previously, who knows when James will eventually have that capability with the flute buried so deep into swamp.
Meanwhile, James is going ahead and checking Graveyard Ledge. Let's see what he picks up over here. Our goose has been loosed, and off goes Biohazard up to Death Mountain.
And there is the book deep in the Graveyard Ledge. That finally opens up a Desert Palace, if James were so inclined. Desert Palace being a green pendant that may not be high on his agenda, but at this point may take any item locations he can get at this point.
Well, on top of the 2 items that are available in Desert Palace, since that is the green one, it does give you the one at Sir Hashala's also. So it could be a required item. We'll definitely see here shortly. And we have our 3rd sword upgrade there and the King's Tomb.
Yeah, Biohazard getting his Master Sword moments ago in Swamp, so not sure when James will ever get Tempered Sword. Probably around the same time he eventually finds the flute, but we'll see. We'll see which one picks up the 3rd sword over the other here as we proceed here. Biohazard now taking the dive into Tower of Hera along with the Death Mountain foray.
And I foresee Biohazard having a lot easier time given the fact he's got that Master Sword already. He shouldn't have all the difficulties with Moldborn that James did. So let's go ahead and see what James is doing over here.
Looks like a Bombos tablet check, making perfect sense, collecting the Master Sword and the book in quick succession here. But it looks like he's setting up the portal to do that at a later time. Going to go ahead and thread in the Desert Palace locations prior to that. Very strategic portal placement there for James with a Bombos tablet check in immediate mind.
I agree completely, and it's definitely interesting to see this because normally you see them do the Bombos tablet, then jump off down here to do Agena, and then check in the desert. But we'll see what James does.
Given the relative elusiveness of a lot of these high-value items, Titan's mitts, for example, and the medallions as well, I'm wondering when James is going to take the opportunity to reveal the contents of the pedestal, perhaps.
Yeah, well, since he's already done Skull, I don't foresee it happening anytime soon. But if he gets desperate, he might look into it.
Meanwhile, while Biohazard is just moments away from round 1 with Moldorm, James is going to take a look into Desert Palace here. Let's see if we can find the 2 items and also determine if this would have been a boots lock Desert Palace. That's obviously no longer an issue for our runners, but be interesting to find out. We have the big key there in that first chest, so at least completion of the palace would not have been boots locked for sure.
And Biohazard making quick work of the Troll Dorm and not having any issues, so he's making up a little bit of time there while we see what James gets out of the big chest.
getting the small key, which pretty much had to be there given that the map was on the torch and big key in that initial chest there. So James will go ahead and dash on over to the right side here and see if any of the 2 items are in these upcoming 2 chests. And James getting a red shield to go along with the red clothing that James currently is sporting. So that's one of the 2 items, and there's the second item in the form of 10 arrows. And let's see if James elects to... well, looks like he is continuing and at least get the ledge. Maybe go ahead and take care of Landmillis at the same time.
That's what I'm seeing here. Let's see if that's where he goes or if he fakes us out here.
Looks like James having second thoughts.
It looks like it exactly. So he is going to fake us out and go ahead and save and quit. And let's see what he does. If he picks up his Bombos medallion now, or what he does for now.
Yeah, maybe Bombos followed by a swamp potentially for James. I'm not sure, but I would presume the Bombos tablet check at the very least.
Meanwhile, we see Biohazard there going ahead and picking up his silvers, his 3rd bottle. And it looks like James is going to go ahead and jump into Swamp, so he will be pleased when he picks up his Temper Sword and his flute eventually.
Indeed, and I'll be very curious to see if James remembers to check Bombos, because he was certainly setting up for it before quitting out previously. If Bombos has something valuable, remembering that was not checked could play a role here. But James is going to go ahead and dive into Swamp. Now, I don't believe Biohazard, the left side was not checked by Biohazard, and I'm not sure if that's due to the item counting or what, but looks like the sword and the flute, more than enough for Biohazard in his Swamp clearance.
Completely agree, and I'm curious to see if Biohazard's doing a Spike Cave check here or what he's doing. We will see here shortly. And it looks like Spike Cave is going to happen. And just a big 20 for his efforts on Spike Cave. So let's go ahead and see where he heads out to now.
And Biohazard deciding to choose the incorrect save file. I'm sure we're going to see an immediate save and quit and a resumption of the appropriate file here in just a few moments from Biohazard. Or unless he's just deciding to start from square one here. It looks like Biohazard electing not to voluntarily put himself an hour behind.
Alright, so this should be interesting since we're getting right to the point to see if James is going to do a left side dip or if he's just going to head straight back to Argus and pick up his sword and flute also. Well, he will be very happy once he gets back there since he's making the play straight to Argus. And we'll go ahead and see here. It looks like Biohazard is going to go make a play on Moth. And we have James going ahead and getting his tempered sword. He should be very happy about that. And will be even more happy once he goes ahead and jumps up here and grabs his flute. We'll see if he finishes or if he just nopes out of the rest of the dungeon.
Is going to go ahead and proceed, it looks like, onwards to Argus, and with that tempered sword, that will make this fight a very, very quick proposition, to be sure. Could even potentially set up for a no or a one cycle if James were had that capability. That being a very difficult thing to achieve, though, but having all the necessary components to do it. But either way, Argus will go down relatively quickly here, all the same.
Completely agreed there, as we see BioHazard going ahead and going into the King's Tomb to get his tempered sword. So we are even on swords here.
Yep, both runners getting their collective tempered swords here in relatively similar times, despite getting them in different locations, as Argus is going to go down here in 2 spins to James. And that is Argus down. Both runners now having that pendant from Swamp and the items collected there, and we'll see if James continues on or goes ahead and proceeds elsewhere with the contents that he's collected from Swamp thus far.
And BioHazard going ahead and picking up the Book of Medora, and let's see if he heads over to Desert Palace also, or what he does.
James electing to do a 180 and go right back into Swamp. Go ahead and clear out left side, just in the event that there is yet even more to be had out of this pendant dungeon. Certainly understandable, but we'll see if there's even more goods to be had beyond a tempered sword or a sword upgrade and the flute. And there's plenty yet to be had in the sea. We got Titan's mitts, 2 of the 3 medallions, both canes. There's still plenty out on the table for our runners, and who knows where these items are going to be found.
I completely agree, especially with the bow being missing. I would definitely go ahead and check it, because it's better to get it out of way instead of having it weigh on your mind later saying, ooh, is there something I missed back in the left side of Swamp? So we shall see here shortly.
We'll see if BioHazard, after collecting the 2 items out of Desert, we'll see if BioHazard elects to go ahead and collect the green pendant as well. That's something that James forewent previously. So that's another possible dungeon variation that these runners could have on each other.
Agreed, and with BioHazard already having his flute by this time, he could easily go ahead and do a Sahashala check and see what the green pendant offers up. So we shall see what he does. James having a little bit of tough time with that fire snake there, but he got through it without too much problem. Let's go ahead and see what the rest of Swamp Palace has for us.
All right, let's see if left side is worth the time investment here. I would say so.
That is probably going to come back to bite BioHazard later in the seed, since he does not have his Titan's Mitts.
Holy crap! Oh my word!
That left side dip was definitely required, and it's going to come back to haunt BioHazard later in this match.
I wasn't sure how to stack these runners up prior to that, but I would say right now James has a commanding lead over BioHazard at this point. Lord knows when BioHazard will double dip Swamp, but it'll be better that he do it sooner than later with those goods. Goodness gracious, that's a sword, the flute, Titan's mitts, and the Cane of Samaria, all in Swamp alone.
That was a loaded Swamp for it being a pendant dungeon. So we shall definitely see if Biohazard goes ahead and checks it. Doesn't look like it. Looks like we might get a play for the... where is he going?
Looks like Bio is going into K45, and we'll get a lamp for the check here. And looks like James returning back to the village of Outcast, presumably, and we'll see where he decides to go from here. Oh, he's activating his flute.
Yep, he's definitely getting the gooses loose, so he'll be fluting around also. Let's go ahead and see what Biohazard does now that he's got his lamp. He's got Fire Rod, and see if he goes ahead and does Skull Woods. If he redips Swamp, we'll see what he does. It looks like he's going for a Bombos Medallion check. Unfortunately, it's not going to pay off like we would hope. And we get our first check here. See, Meyer is for the Quake Medallion, and so that is still on the lookout.
So that's at least one medallion that our runners are going to be looking for here. And let's see what the Meyer shed has. We have 300 rupees and the final sword upgrade for James. So you know, why not keep this hot streak of cool item collections going for James here? Very nice.
All right, let's see if he picks up anything else over here in Checkerboard Cave, or if his streak starts to cool off a little bit as we see Biohazard doing the third step while bringing the old man behind him.
I'll get him his Bombos tablet. Meanwhile, Heart Container and Checkerboard Cave, which James is going to go ahead and pick up for that extra health insurance. So with the Meyer area subsequently cleared as all that can be for now, James is going to go ahead and return to the Village of Outcasts warp point. No, okay. No, we got a ped check coming up from James, it looks like.
Oh, I thought he was going to do his dwarf or his smith check and whatnot, but no, you're right. He's doing a pedestal check. We shall see if it is required. And the big 50 there on the Ether Medallion, so no progression there for Biohazard.
And looks like just a shield upgrade at the pedestal. That's certainly not what our viewers were looking for out of the pedestal this evening, but maybe next time, guys. There's certainly been plenty of ped seeds in this tournament that even I've had the pleasure, to commentate. So looks like James is going to take that knowledge and take it all the way to Ice Palace.
Agreed, but that also means we will not be seeing the mirror shield tonight, so the logic will solely rely right now on the magic cape. And it looks like we have Biohazard doing his left side dip, which he will be thankful for that he did.
After cursing himself for leaving prematurely, potentially, but nice, better late than never, I suppose, for Biohazard, as we're going to see the first item chest here out of the Ice Palace for James here, once these pen gators get extinguished.
Now the question is for you, do you think he will do some frustration slashes, and if so, how many?
If he doesn't do frustration slashes, I will certainly praise the restraint possessed by Biohazard for sure. I would guess all the frustration slashes if I were in Biohazard's shoes. In the meantime, we've got James on his way to further into Ice Palace, potentially seeing an Ice Palace bomb jump here momentarily from James after the next few rooms.
Agreed. I can't disagree with the frustration slashes because every one of us would probably have done that in his situation, having forgotten about doing left side and what's about to show up for there for Biohazard.
James flipping the switch to set up for an Ice Palace bomb jump. Let's see how well this gets executed. That's a very nice setup there from James. No problem getting that Palace bomb jump set up. Very nicely done.
Completes it like a pro and goes ahead and jumps across the hole and continues on with his way. So we shall see what else hidden pleasures are in Ice Palace form.
And that first key out of that first chest offers some additional routing options to further accelerate the clearance of this palace with that bomb jump in addition to that. So we'll see. And yes, James going to use that key right away, enter the eastern room of this four-way stop here. And we'll see where these three items coming up here have any of the three items in the pool for this dungeon.
Alright, and here comes Biohazard for his east side check of Swamp, and we shall start seeing if he gets frustrated or if he remains cool.
Well, I'm sure the frustration is going to be inevitable. It's just a matter of how well do you respond to this. But either way, it's definitely good for Biohazard to go ahead and return these. And there are those frustration slashes, well understood and quite warranted.
And I'm sure there will be some more after Samaria pops up. And he does not make us sad there. Meanwhile, we're getting James over here, and he finds the elusive bug net, so we can do some swag strats.
I believe that is two of the three items. I believe there was a red rupee in the vanilla big key location for Ice Palace for James. So James looking for the last of the three items to check this off his to-do list, and just a compass there. So I don't believe the big key has been collected, so we're gonna have to wave at this big chest and move on to Cold Stair, or the iced tea room potentially in Cold Stair.
That is completely true. And meanwhile, Biohazard going ahead and filling up with some safeties, getting the blue potions, and moving on.
This looks like a similar ice play from Biohazard as well. So all roads leading to ice here for both of our runners here. Let's see if there's anything of value beyond the requisite crystal. It is the red crystal, though, so this will open up the Pyramid Fairy locations after this is completed. So regardless of whether an item is here or not, there's still going to be some additional opportunities following this dungeon's clearance.
Alright, let's see if the big chest holds anything favorable for James here. And just another big 20. Nothing exciting there, sadly.
So that checks Ice Palace off the checklist of potential item locations. Still need to go ahead and take care of the master of this dungeon. That would be Cold Stair with the golden sword. That should be a very trivial fight, to say the least.
I agree completely, and he'll go ahead and continue that. Get it knocked out here shortly while Biohazard plays catch up a little bit here in the dungeon and continues through.
That's the benefit of a gold sword right there. Very easy, quick dispatching of Cold Stair getting a small key, which will be left unused, and more importantly, another crystal for James.
Not just any crystal, but a red crystal, so he has full access to Pyramid Fairy, and I should probably guess he'll be checking that here shortly.
And it looks like Biohazard foregoing the Ice Palace bomb jump, going to go through the normal way through Ice Palace here. Meanwhile, James electing to go right back to Death Mountain here with these Titan's Mitts. Maybe go ahead and check the Dark World spots here of Death Mountain now that they finally have the ability to do so.
Cannot say I blame him, because that's a higher amount of stuff to be able to check than the 2 at Pyramid Fairy. So let's go ahead and see what Dark Death Mountain has to hold for us today.
And we should also get an idea of the medallion that Turtle Rock will require as well. So that'll give us an idea if we have yet another item to add to our agenda here. And it is indeed Ether. That makes 2 medallions that neither runner has collected to finish this seed out. So I'm sure that's the last thing James wanted to see. But that is yet another item that is going to need to be found at some point here.
And Biohazard having a little bit of trouble with ice mechanics there, but finally gets past it and continues on with Ice Palace and finds his big key, so I'm sure he'll be going looking for it shortly.
Although there is some convenience to be had there. The fact that as of right now, anyway, nothing can be buried in TR until that ether is accounted for. So we'll see if that happens to be the case, perhaps right here in Hookshot Cave. Hookshot Cave is not going to have it. Just some health and some money and arrows out of the Hookshot Cave. Certainly not what James was in the mood for, to be certain. Let's see if James is on the way to do an ether medallion check, or an ether tablet check, rather. Perhaps Spike Cave as well.
I would probably guess so, and he's sadly not going to enjoy what he sees on either of those. So let's go ahead and we'll see Biohazard go ahead and check in the vanilla big key chest, and go ahead and just get the big 20 and being disappointed there also.
So James is going to walk on the spikes here. Going to go ahead and take as much damage to preserve the magic as much as he can. Unfortunately, he is about to discover that he's only going to get 20 rupees for his efforts here.
Well, he tanked the most of that room, but like you said, just 20 rubies. Not really worth the time. Let's see where he goes off to now. He didn't check the rest of Death Mountain, so I'm curious as where he's going.
The longer and longer this goes without any of these Go Mode items to be found, I'm having to... The dark side of my mind is wondering if Sahasrara is withholding one of these key items from our runners at this point.
I completely agree, but then again, like I said, we completely skipped Dark Side Death Mountain, so we don't see what's there, but Pyramid Fairy check is coming up. We'll see what shows up at that location.
Yep. 2 items are in the immediate future here out of the Pyramid Fairy locations with both red crystals collected. Meanwhile, go ahead.
And you see Biohazard go ahead and do some Bombo strats there to go ahead and save some magic and use that for his attack there on Cold Stare.
And down goes Cold Stare for Biohazard. Meanwhile, we're going to have a decently sized boom there to reveal the Pyramid Fairy spots, and within we have just more rupees, and there's the bow at long last. In celebration of that bow, James going to toss in a bottle and get a free contents. Let's see what the fairy provides. And just a B. So a B to go along with that D, if you will.
And here we go. James probably going to run right over to Eastern Palace and get that knocked out of the way so he can continue his path towards Ganon.
While Biohazard surveying the Mire region and seeing what he can collect out of here, and noting the Quake requirement for Mire as well, getting his Go One Den sword as well.
And Biohazard picks up the heart as well, as we see James go ahead and continue to clear out Eastern Palace. Let's see where Biohazard takes off to now. Looks like he might be checking the big fairy here shortly, as that is where that would be headed to now.
Yep, and Biohazard will be very thankful for the bow that he'll be collecting from the Pyramid Fairy here shortly. Meanwhile, James is going to fully clear Eastern Palace here. From earlier, we do know that the Armos Knights have the final item here. That's certainly not... James was not aware of that, seeing that James only got the first 2 locations and then pieced out of there with the Power Glove. So James doing his due diligence here, clearing it out fully, leaving nothing to chance, and the Armos Knights are don't blink as they're about to go down here to these silver arrows.
And we got Biohazard about to make a big bada boom while James is going ahead and clearing things out on the Eastern Palace side. And Biohazard keeps up his frustration swipes as we go, while everything getting cleared out by the silvers on James's side. Let's go ahead and see what we have in store behind the Armos Knights.
Just yet another heart container and a crystal for James here. And that is 5 crystals out of the 7. We are needing, at the very least, the 2 medallions to be able to collect crystals 7, 6, and 7 for James. So it's really a matter of where are these medallions at this point.
No, James, don't. Oh, man, he could have checked Sahashala while he was there.
Could he? I'm not sure. Did he clear Desert Palace?
Wait, no, I'm wrong. Sorry, never mind. I was thinking it was Biohazards, but Biohazard didn't even clear it either, so we won't see Sahashala for a while.
No problem here. It looks like Biohazard echoing James's decision here, and we'll go ahead and clear out Armos as well. And Biohazard will be able to just go straight to Armos as he's already cleared everything else in Eastern Palace previously, whereas James elected to opt out as soon as he collected the Power Glove to check other Dark World locations, since he had the Hammer and the Moon Pearl at that point. Looks like James is going to go ahead and start the reuniting the blacksmiths and presumably doing a purple chest check, and I would think the Bombos tablet thereafter, as James did not check that upon previous visits to the Swamp Palace region. And down in the peg cave, we just have 20 rupees, so James will forego picking that up for obvious reasons and move on to see if the blacksmiths are a little bit more thankful for James's efforts. And just the bloomerang from the blacksmiths. Meanwhile, the Armos Knights down just like that with Biohazard's silver arrows, and there's Biohazard's Eastern Palace crystal collected just past 1 hour and 31 minutes. And we'll see if James deposits this purple chest back to its rightful owner with a flute orb shortcutting that whole journey. Interesting, neither runner electing to route in pod along with their Eastern Palace clearance here. Now, whether that comes back to bite them, we shall see. It looks like James is reading my mind, though, and is immediately taking the warp here. Looks like a revisit to pod is in the cards for James here. Meanwhile, Biohazard looking to take down Mothula to finish what James has already done as far as crystals are concerned. If I understand correctly, Biohazard has already full cleared the items out of Swamp, and we'll just need to go to the back of Swamp with the Fire Rod and send Mothula packing.
We're installed it right now in that Swamp. We already completed Swamp, bud.
Yeah, it's just a verbal gaffe on my part. Mine was trying to say Skull Woods, but decided to blurt out Swamp.
Not a problem. It's that time of night.
These things happen at 1 in the morning. What can you do?
Completely agreed. Let's go ahead and see if James picks up anything down here in pod, or if it's somewhere else that's elusive to us.
So far, just a map and a key on the right side of Eastern. James will be able to hammer down the pegs here and proceed to other locations here in pod without having to warp back.
And Biohazard making good saves there on his magic, so you can tell he's going to be using some magic strats on Mothula there.
question about that. Plenty of fire rod charges still left in Biohazard with a full half magic bar. He could liberally fire off this fire rod in an event. It would make no difference. So Mothula fight underway for Biohazard, and this should be done with relative ease here with Biohazard's loadout. Down goes Mothula, taken care of. Just under 1 hour, 35 minutes for Biohazard, getting his Skullwoods crystal. And there's Ether Medallion in Pendant Pod. These pendant dungeons have everything seemingly in this seed. At this rate, I'm sure Quake is King Helmasaur's item. Bio learning that it's just a shield at pedestal, so any pendant boss kills outside of collecting any remaining items are not going to be necessary. There's the big key for James. Nice timing, as he can now go ahead and finish this maze out and get the big chest as well. And there's some powder for James. That opens up the magic bat for James if he wants to go ahead and thread that check in at some point if Pod comes up empty otherwise. That is another small key, typical for Pod. Now, I do believe that leaves that the vanilla big key chest must have yet another key. So with just the compass remaining, that should be all the items collected out of Pod. And James apparently recognizing that as well and moving on to other spots. Meanwhile, we got Biohazard going to check the Super Bunny Cave locations now. Getting just yet another heart container and an arrow upgrade out of the Super Bunny Cave. So Biohazard looks to be heading towards Hookshot Cave, and will not be too thrilled at its contents, but good to get that out of the way and also get the knowledge of the Ether Medallion being required for Turtle Rock, which James has now picked up and looks like maybe making a dive towards Turtle Rock now that Turtle Rock is now open and active for further perusal. So we'll see here from James's perspective whether or not Turtle Rock has the much desired Quake Medallion. There are 5 locations to be had in the dungeon proper, plus there is the Mimic Cave as well en route to Trinex here. So we'll see if any of those locations pay up for James. Meanwhile, Bio deliberating where to go next after that Dark World Death Mountain check. Looks like he is going to be going northward here towards this portal. There's the big key right off the bat for James. So big key collected, and we'll see if he can find the required small keys and maybe some maybe a Quake Medallion here from Turtle Rock. Meanwhile, Bio going to perhaps go towards the blacksmith and hammer pegs here. Nope. Oh, yes, he is. Of course he is. He's got to get Jeremiah first. And there's a mushroom, the first of 5 items in TR being the mushroom. Now, if the mushroom leads to our Quake Medallion, that's going to be some rather creative item placement out of this seed, but we'll see if that's just a red herring or not. Meanwhile, we have Biohazard foregoing the 20 rupees there in the hammer pegs and going to go ahead and reunite these blacksmiths and collect his blue boomerang here. And it looks like James might have glitched himself out here. And that is going to be a huge setback. Hopefully the mirror is going to reset that, and it looks like it will. Good game, guys. Really good game here. James proceeding through, and we'll be encountering the chain chomps now, and it looks like Bio is going to dip back into pod here. Getting a couple of taps from the chomps, though, but with red mail, that minimizes what the considerable damage the chomps would otherwise do. And James is going to proceed onward to deeper into Turtle Rock now, while Bio is en route back to pod. And James having some difficulty with the myriad of obstacles that this particular room has between the anti-fairies, the pokey, and not to mention the laser eye and the floating skulls. It's quite a busy room, and if not done effectively, it can lead to some setbacks as we're seeing here. But looks like James recovering nicely, and we'll go ahead and check the vanilla big key chest here, and we'll see if anything comes out of it. Well, something does come out of it, but it's certainly not what James was hoping for in the form of those 3 bombs. And that's 2 of the 5 items now collected out of Turtle Rock for James. Meanwhile, we got Biohazard going to check the right side. That was previously bow locked. Just going to get a small key and a map so far.
And we're back. Sorry about that, guys.
Yeah, no problem, man. We got James making the Turtle Rock dive right now since he collected ether out of pod, full cleared pod, and that was pretty much the full contents of pod that is of note. Biohazard is currently in the process of doing that same pod clearance, but with the medallion now, James parlaying that to a Turtle Rock visit. So far, not getting anything of value, but we're still not even halfway through collecting all the items here out of Turtle Rock. James corralling these mimics to their inevitable demise. And let's see what Mimic Cave has for James here. Just a piece of heart, getting him his 17th full heart, which that's about the only consolation he's going to get out of this Mimic Cave visit. Let's see if the remaining 3 items of Turtle Rock have anything more notable.
I foresee Laser Blade being very profitable.
There's one of the 2 small keys James is going to need to find to gain access to the very end of Turtle Rock here. And James using the blue boomerang to proceed past that room, switching over to the Cane of Samaria so we can go ahead and get past this maze-like room and onward towards the laser bridge. Meanwhile, Biohazard navigating past the collapsing floor of Pod. Going to see what these remaining chests have in store for him. He's not going to be too... He's going to find the Ether Medallion, but that's going to be all. And let's see if Biohazard goes ahead and parlays that Ether Medallion and subsequent Turtle Rock access to a Turtle Rock visit as well. And there's Quake for Laser Bridge. So as you foresaw, Laser Bridge quite profitable. Finally, JamesFnX is at go mode right as the clock strikes 1 hour and 45 minutes.
It's always nice to have a little bit of commentator's luck when we call these splits. You know, that'll probably be the end of my luck for tonight.
Biohazard collecting his powder, I'm sure in the back of his mind wondering if that means Magic Bat has anything of value. We know otherwise, as James is manipulating this room to get past it and head towards what should be a pretty accelerated Trinex kill. James trying to take care of Trinex from behind. Unfortunately, Trinex having other ideas, and James will need to go ahead now and take care of the ice head. Switch to the fire rod prior to dispatching of the first head. Very nice, so he didn't get locked out. Being able to switch items, and down goes the second head of Trinex. Onward to the final phase of Trinex with a golden sword and some well-placed spin slashes should be a pretty quick conclusion to this fight.
And right as James is finishing up Turtle Rock, Biohazard's about to be entering into it, so it's just a little bit of game of catch-up right now.
And that is crystal number 6 for James. Crystal number 7 is going to be coming out of Mire, and that'll be a go mode Mire. So it's just going to be a mad dash to find that big key and head straight to Vitreous to get the 7th and final crystal. Surely not a moment too soon for James, given how rather rude, I would say, the seed has treated both of our runners up to this point.
And without too many big things happening, it is currently James's race to lose. And Biohazard has a lot to catch up on, pretty much all because of that delayed swamp dive.
That is certainly going to be the key thing to look back on for sure, with James turning right back around and going in to clear out the left side, whereas Biohazard was satisfied with just the everywhere else, but just so happened in this particular case, left side was quite loaded.
Don't get me wrong, normally I could understand Biohazard skipping of the left side after what he got there, but unfortunately with this seed, it was all that was paying off from that side.
Yep, it's just a matter of how these items were shuffled. In certain scenarios, being extra conservative and full clearing swamp might have, just been a time dump, but in this case, it certainly paid huge and to James's benefit here. But In any case, we got James checking for that big key of Meyer. That's all he's going to want to get past this dungeon. So far, just finding the many small keys that this dungeon provides and the map at this point, as Biohazard is doing his best to evade the chain chomps using the cape to aid in that regard.
It's probably a good thing he used the cape there, since he's down to 3 hearts, and they would have definitely knocked him back to the beginning of Turtle Rock.
Using the recently collected powder from Pod to his benefit here to bring himself right back to full health by converting a couple of anti-fairies to their fairy counterparts. And meanwhile, James is checking this location and still no big key, practically finding everything else, which is, at least in my memory, pretty typical for a go mode Meyer. Looking like he's saving the vanilla big key location for the very last possible check, trying to avoid having to watch a wall get moved if possibly can.
I can completely understand that, but with the way this seed's been, I have a... Oh, no, never mind. I'll shut up.
I know where you were going, and I completely echo your thoughts there. This seed has been quite rude and would have not been out of character for what the seed has done to bury that big key in its vanilla spot. James, however, resisting the temptation and going for everywhere else and finding that big key in that location is now going to make a beeline to Vitreous, who should be pretty, with some well-accurate bow shots, should be a pretty easy fight as well. Meanwhile, on the other side of our screen here, we got Biohazard on his way to the Mimic Cave, getting a little bit of laser aggression here. That's why you don't want to turn and face that particular laser, because it will only respond with a laser in your face. But Biohazard taking that in stride, moving on to the Mimic Cave here, and we'll be on to the laser bridge of Turtle Rock, where he will eventually find his Quake Medallion.
And James making good time now that he's got that big key, heading straight back to getting ready to make some eyeballs go pop.
And a very well done no-cycle Vitreous from James. That is his 7th and final crystal of the seed at 1 hour, 52 minutes, and 40 seconds. He'll be en route to Ganon's Tower, and as veteran viewers of Randomizer here on Speed Gaming are aware, we have a game that we play. As James is making his way to Ganon's Tower, feel free to enter in a number between 1 and 22 to guess which of those chests in that numerical order will the big key be located. What's up? Do you have a preferred chest in mind?
I enjoy doing 13 just because it normally falls into the randomizer room, which is so happily named after the randomizer community, because that's the only time it pops up. But, you know, my luck isn't very good with that, so we'll see where it falls.
And everyone watching is welcome to participate in this little side game we play here. If you want to have your luck remembered in our leaderboards, you need to either have subbed to one of the Speed Gaming channels or provided a combined 250 bits or more. Again, regardless, either way, you're welcome to throw in your guesses at chat with reckless abandon. Please do note this is only an exhibition, no actual wagering, please. James now on his way to Ganon's Tower here, just past the 114th minute, while Biohazard is navigating the laser bridge, getting a small key and a Quake Medallion here momentarily.
And the Dead Rocks are playing up to the name of being the biggest pain in the game.
If there is anything deserving of frustration slashes, that would be it.
Completely agree, because those were probably the biggest headache for me as a child, was those Dead Rocks getting in the way.
And the entrance to Ganon's Tower revealed. James is going to start his Ganon's Tower survey. Gonna elect to go to the left side right out the gate here.
And just a piece of love on the big red torch. So let's go ahead and keep seeing what's up next.
So in this case, that is item 1 here, being that piece of heart on the torch. Let's see what items 2 through 5 will now be here on this northern room. And 3 is your winner, James. That variation in routing paying off dividends for James, collecting that big key in chest number 3 in his ordering. So very nicely done. I'm sure James is, I'm not sure if he's made that as a sort of a quasi gamble, but whatever his reasoning there, he's certainly pleased with his decision there. Meanwhile, Trinex about to go down here for Biohazard.
And we're getting the gauntlets marched through here, and James making short work of those mimics, and off he goes towards the statues.
Shoutouts for the 3-bit donations in response to that big key pull. Thanks a lot, guys.
And James using invincibility frames to march right through the Cannonball Z room as Biohazard makes his way to Meyer.
And this particular enemy hugging the north side of this room, being a bit of a pest, but James finally dispatches it there with a bit of a dash there. And down to 2 more rooms of this gauntlet before encountering land mode 2. Very nicely done. So taking stock here, given that we have gold swords, silver arrows, all the health in the world, at this point it's going to take an extreme series of unfortunate events for James to not take this one at this juncture.
Completely agreed at that, and it's not even going to be a small margin at that either, sadly. And when Biohazard watches the replay, I think he'll completely understand where the gap came from.
And even with that unfortunate death, that escape that set him behind by between 1 to 2 minutes from the get-go, had Swamp been all cleared in one trip, I would think that this would be neck and neck, if not Biohazard. With the advantage at this point. It's hard to say. So much happened in between, but while the tendency would be to focus on that early death, that's certainly far from what told the tale in this race, in my viewpoint at least.
I completely agree with you that I think at this point in time that death there and escape was trivial, but having to come back and re-clear swamp I think was the major deciding factor in this.
James will need to get this key from the mini Helmosaur. Very nicely done there. And just a few rooms away from Moldorm 2. And subsequently Agatu and Ganon for James at FNX, as we have the clock just about to tick over to the 2-hour mark in this race. It looks like Biohazard is going to go ahead and check this vanilla big key. Unfortunately, going to be disappointed to find that's not where that big key is. In fact, I believe it's actually it's possibly the second item of this dungeon is going to be here, if not in the big key chest. Meanwhile, Moldorm 2 going down in quick succession for James. James, foregoing the final check, has everything he could possibly want for Agatu and Ganon, and will be on his way to dispatch of the final 2 bosses of the game here in short order.
I agree. I don't see any reason why he would check those. He has everything he needs. It's just time to march straight on and get to the big pig and knock him out.
Let's see how many cycles Agatu takes here. Our good old favorite geometry wizard. That first cycle might have been a double, but it may have only counted for 1 hit. Got a second hit in the second cycle, and there's another hit in cycle 3. There is for sure a double for James, and that does mean that was a single in that first phase. But down goes Agatu. There was 6 reflected shots right back in his face. Onward to Ganon and the merciful end to this rather cumbersome seed.
And here we go for the final fight. All 4 rounds with the gold sword, so it's gonna be quick time to go ahead and get through all of it. So as we see, Biohazard is heading in to go kill the boss there. Let's go ahead and see what Ganon wants to lay with us on some knowledge.
Ganon with the profound shower thoughts there, indeed. And that's phase 1, and right on to phase 2. Just 6 slashes with a gold sword is all it is needed to advance phases. And very nice little dash strats here. You normally would see this with the tempered sword, but equally as effective with a gold sword in tow, and very nice. Oh, taking a couple hits from those fire bats, but with red mail, that's a pretty trivial matter.
And yes, indeed, we did find the silver arrows in Death Mountain, and he gets the torch glitch. Not that he necessarily needed it, but hey, it all helps.
That is hit 2 of 4 with the silvers for James, and let's see if we can get a double here to close this out. Almost, not quite, but James taking Ganon out with that 4th silver arrow. GG's to JamesFnX. He will take this race at time just shy of 2 hours and 4 minutes. Very nicely done from JamesFnX, and he will go to 2-2 now with this victory.
Indeed, GG to JamesFnX. We shall see shortly if he'll come in and do a post-race interview. No, Cool Seed was not it.
Perhaps a bit of sarcasm from the victory text there.
If it was sarcasm, then rightly placed, but it's a computer. What does it know of sarcasm?
Meanwhile, we got Biohazard getting his 7th crystal at the expense of Vitreous, and will be on his way to his own Ganon's Tower clearance here as well. And we are now joined by the victor here, JamesFnX. Congratulations. How about those pendant dungeons, huh?
Yeah, there was a lot going on in those pendant dungeons this seed. I thought that not getting green pendant in desert was going to burn me, but it didn't end up doing that.
Yeah, that was certainly an option, as options were running relatively thin for a lot of those items there. That was certainly a possibility, but agreed, that ended up not to hurting you. Your opponent also electing not to finish Desert Palace, not committing to Landmo. What really seemed to be the difference, just for your information, Bio actually got to Swamp slightly ahead of you, but elected to be satisfied with the flute and sword upgrade after being Fergus and moving on. Otherwise, you electing to thoroughly complete it gave you access to Mitts and the Cane of Samaria, which it was pretty much your race to lose from that point.
There's 2 items left in the Swamp. You've got to go back in. I had no choice at that point. I had to go back in. There were 2 items left in the Swamp, and I don't think I had an item dense area left to check.
Yeah, I don't know if it was a gamble of some kind. It's hard to speculate, but that clearly was the difference in my mind. That really opened the gap and led you to a pretty sizable time difference here. We've got Biohazard now ascending Ganon's Tower here, checking the right side, which you actually went straight to the left side, much to your benefit, actually. It wouldn't have made that much of a difference, but I'm sure at the time you were feeling pretty good about that play.
I felt kind of behind at that point. I checked most of the overworld. My execution hadn't been the best, so I was planning on checking the Stalfos room. If I had an extra key, checking the Firebar room, and then heading to the right side after that. I got the big key and got out of there. So.
Yeah, and that Turtle Rock dive after getting the Ether Medallion leading right to Quake, that was a very good call on your part. Interesting little, I guess, an EG glitch there en route there. I'm not sure what happened there, but that was something interesting to view at the time, for sure.
Yeah, I was like, why can't I get back up there, and why can't I get in the room? Like, oh, all right, I guess I'll just mirror out and hope that things aren't busted too bad.
And as we see the unknown shield sleeping again on your view there, we were really thinking for a while that pedestal could have been, there were any number of options for pedestal there for the longest time prior to the Swamp check. But honestly, if anything, this was kind of had the sense of a ped seed for a long time there. Surprising that didn't come to pass, much to Chat's chagrin, I'm sure. But yeah, this was quite the display on how valuable pendant dungeons could be in this particular randomizer version, to be sure. Goodness gracious, that Swamp, though.
Yeah, that's the most loaded I've ever seen a dungeon in this version, at least. That was 3 key items, because there was something else in there, wasn't there?
Flute.
Yeah.
Flute, yeah. Yeah. Flute, Mitts, and Cane, all in one dungeon.
Yeah, it was insane.
And a sword to boot.
No, it's the seed had a lot of options for routing, but they all kind of drained into a single point at certain points. It's a very weird seed overall in terms of trying to find the right route.
completely agree. The breadcrumbs did kind of spread out a little bit, but like you said, it all seemed to converge into one area on the routing for everything.
Not being so loaded, and the early game kind of draining into where were the mitts, and then the late game draining into where the medallions.
Yeah, absolutely. Moon Pearl and Hammer so quickly there. It looked like the seed was going to be rather generous. It quickly thought otherwise, though, there with this item shuffling here. So interesting difference as well. After you found the Power Glove out of Eastern Palace, immediately deciding to utilize the options and going right for Dark World locations, while Biohazard likes to go ahead and clear a little bit. Just a minor difference there, but I'm just trying to think of the various differences in you guys' routing at this point. That's another option that comes to mind.
Yeah, at that point, I'd already found 2 items in Eastern. Dark Room in Eastern without a sword, or any sort of way to locate where I'm at. And at best, I could open up one more item based on the 2 chests left in the light. It was either big key and big chest, or just whatever was in compass chest there. So I decided to get out and use the glove.
Certainly a logical decision, no question about that here. So this brings you back up to 2-2. So you are still in contention for potential bracket advancement here. So congratulations on that. Still 3 more weeks to go here, and looking forward to see what comes out of this for you here. Congratulations once again.
Thank you. Glad to get back on the winning column. I missed a week due to being out of the country on vacation, so I knew that was going to happen coming in. So being 2-2 at this point, I'm pretty satisfied with.
Oh, I didn't realize one of your losses was due to not being able to show for one of those. I was not made aware of that. Well, that's very impressive then to turn right back around and get back to 2-2. I was going to say that you had a pretty rough schedule as far as your opponents have been so far. So maybe you can turn this around and 3 more wins and you're right in there. So best of luck to you.
We'll see what happens. I didn't do particularly well in the fall tournament, so I'm happy with where I'm at. We'll see what happens next week.
Again, GG, and try the win there, as we see Biohazard finally getting into the last part here to go face Agatu.
James, feel free to stick around if you'd like, although it is rather late in the evening, so I would completely understand if you want to go ahead and bow out with this victory.
Got a little bit of time still, so.
Cool. Well, while we're waiting for Biohazard to go ahead and put the finishing touches on his seed here, I want to volunteer for each of you to give these runners a follow. They both put on a very entertaining show for us this evening, this early morning. So if you'd like to give these runners your valuable time and give them a follow, feel free to do so. Certainly wouldn't be a bad idea to give these guys a view for their future randomizer exploits here. As far as further races, this will be the end of our broadcast evening. Races resuming tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time between Unknown Availability and Killer App 23. And I'm sure there's going to be plenty more races to come following that race tomorrow morning.
And while you're at it, give the commentators and tracker a follow as well.
Appreciate that, sir. And yes, thanks. Big shout outs to Spleeby for tracking for us. We did have a little bit of technical issues in the start of this race, so thanks guys for fighting through us with that. And we see Biohazard here taking care of Agatu in a relative short order here. So right at 2 hours and 14 minutes, Biohazard finishing off Agatu, and we'll be on the way to dispatching of Ganon after some deep thoughts, of course. Yeah. And now that Ganon has finished showing off, we can go ahead and proceed deep into Phase 3 now for Biohazard. And Biohazard immediately responding to Ganon's question with a silver arrow right to his face.
No. Oh no.
Oh dear, that is a very unfortunate teleportation for Biohazard's viewpoint, taking a unfortunate fall. I'm sure that's further frustration for Biohazard at this point, but Biohazard acting like a champ here and going to go right back into it here. I'm not sure if he has, I believe he has potion, so he should be able to top off his magic here when needed. And it may be taken for granted, but I always want to communicate my utmost respect for these runners that despite probably knowing that they have already been defeated, going ahead and finishing this through, it's a very easy thing to just go ahead and wave the white flag, but much respect to Biohazard and every one of the runners I've witnessed that have seen this through to its conclusion. Much respect and props to Biohazard for that.
This time.
And GG's to Biohazard, taking care of Ganon. Just under 2 hours and 19 minutes, albeit in a losing effort, but still, once again, huge respect to Biohazard for seeing this through and completing the seed. Well played to both runners, Biohazard included. GG. And we will see if Biohazard elects to join us for an interview. It looks like he's in the channel, noting that this was a fun seed. I'm sure a little bit of sarcasm dripping from that comment, if I had to guess. And we are indeed joined by Biohazard. GG to you, Biohazard, albeit in the losing effort, but still just completing this rather cumbersome of a seed is a victory in and of itself, I would say.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a good seed, I thought. I mean, overall, I felt my execution was actually not too bad, but some of my routing decisions, maybe not. Skipping left side swamp kind of hurt, but other than that, it was good.
Yeah, that was certainly the highlight of the differences there, to be sure. But I mean, completely understandable after getting the flute and a sword out of the back half of it there. But sometimes there's even more yet to be had, and this was such the case here in this one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was my first time actually doing hammer blind, so that was interesting.
That's right. You both did that wonderfully. I was having some Discord was being Discord at the time, so I didn't get the full opportunity to marvel at both of you guys' blind hammer fights. But yeah, y'all both did that, and that was very impressive. I have to say, I've not had to resort to that yet, and I'm not looking forward to the day I eventually have to.
Yeah, I was glad I had that red potion and cape on me.
I was expecting to die after I got into the third phase with like 2 hearts.
Yeah.
It was really close.
Yeah, well, it was a good seed. I was glad to race it.
Yeah, unfortunately, that early death had to be weighing on your mind pretty much early. Was that tough to get past, or were you able to mentally block that out at the time?
At first, I was like, oh man, but I mean, it was bombs. I think bombs are pretty difficult. But other than that, I was like, it's just a small setback. I can still get through this.
Yeah, your first rooms looked like really, really well done, but then it all unfortunately went south. Unfortunately, the file name taunting apparently turned on you there. So, I mean, sometimes you get what you don't wish for, and sometimes you don't. So
I suppose.
But yeah, it looked like what is this guy worried about bombs for? He's got this thing. But then that cell room happened, and
yeah,
it's easy to look at that as to be a big key, but really, honestly, it probably would have equalized had Swamp been routed just a little bit differently. Quite honestly, that did set you back about a minute from the start, but. A minute can be made up in no time here in these randomizer seeds. So yeah, try not to beat yourself too hard on that one. That can happen to any of us, honestly.
Yeah, I was an inch away from that heart under that pot, but other than that, yeah.
That's usually the way.
The green guard got you when you were trying to.
I was like lifting up the pot, and then he got me, and I was like, oh man, that's a good.
I died trying to do fake flippers, which would have got me a sword for blind.
Yeah. I was thinking of doing that, which would have helped, but I guess hammer blind went okay.
Yep, I can speak to empathizing to both dying to a fake flipper and dying in escape in this tournament in and of itself, so I can truly empathize with the both of you on those unfortunate experiences. I think that's going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'll go ahead and offer the floor to you guys for any final thoughts or comments.
I just wanted to thank everyone involved in this restream. This is the first race I had to restream for, so it was a really cool experience. Thanks.
Yeah, I appreciate everything that the organizers and Speed Gaming and the restreamers and commentators and trackers do to make this happen. Give them all your time, give them all your love. Every follow helps. Every follow is very appreciated. So check them out.
Absolutely, I echo all those sentiments, to be sure. So big shout outs again to our runners here, to JamesFnX, to BioHazardEmpire. If you have not already, feel free to give these guys a follow. They are certainly well worth your time if you'd like to give a viewpoint of their further randomizer play in this tournament and beyond. Also, a big thanks to our tracker Spleeby this evening. Thanks so much for keeping track of these items while we were having some difficulties in the commentary booth up here. But thanks again for all of that you've done. And and big shout outs to my co-commentator, What's Up here. We'll go ahead and give you the mic for any final thoughts. So that's going to go ahead and do it. thanks again, everyone, for sticking around with us. And I wish you all to play hard, keep jamming, and we'll see you. Have a good night, folks.